Thank you for being here. This is so awesome to see a room packed with people that want to learn more about positioning and messaging. And I'll tell you a little bit of my story of why I'm here and why I'm so passionate about it. So as James said, I started my career at Microsoft and as a product manager. And as you can imagine, so this was a time in which there was primarily packaged software that would appear in stores that would have a 2-year shelf life. And so you had to be extremely disciplined about how you would position your product and how you'd message about it because you were stuck with it for 2 years. And then, of course, went through the whole internet revolution and have dealt with a lot of different startups of every size and kind and type where we're changing our messaging daily, hourly, sometimes depending if they're doing ad buys, saying like, oh, well, this word is doing it better. And so the landscape has changed fundamentally. And while the tools are changing, the art is still the same. And that's what we're going to be talking about here, which is how, in this massively changing world, do you land a position and have all the stars array to point out to that position, and then how does your messaging align with that? So my hope for you today, and please hold me to this, is that you leave having a clear distinction between messaging and positioning. And then we'll talk about messaging, because that's what you spend a lot of your time doing, traps and best practices, and then I'll give you some guidelines for great messaging and a one-sheet framework that you can use when you're back at your office. But before we dive in, let me just ask so I get a sense of who's here. How many of you are in B2C companies? Hands high. Okay. And how many of you would consider yourselves both B2B and B2C? Okay, I'm going to presume the rest of you are B2B. Is that safe? Okay, and how many of you here have marketing somewhere in your title? Great. How many of you have product somewhere in your title? How many of you have business development somewhere in your title? Do you have any engineers? All right, and here's why I'm always so excited. So I teach over the Graduate School of Engineering. It's a mind shift when an engineer understands the market perspective, much more so than it is when a marketer learns to do that just slightly better. So thank you for being here, and pass what you learn on to all of your friends. This is an interactive session. Please ask questions at absolutely any time. All right, well, I always like to start off with a story, because all of you, no doubt, are in crowded spaces where you're not the only person or company that does what you do, although little bits might be somewhat standing alone. So this is the story of Marco, who's on the left, who is the lead developer of Tumblr. These are all true stories, by the way. He had a weekly 5x5 podcast, and he created this product called Instapaper in 2008 that would let you save a web page and view it later. He was its sole developer. And 6 months prior to that, Nate, over here on the right, he was a code slinger for a web design firm in Minnesota, and he saw the same problem. And so he created a product called Read It Later that did exactly the same thing. And back in 2011, here's how they stacked up in the marketplace relative to one another. So Instapaper was an industry darling because Marco was an industry darling. It had 1 million users, it was only available on iOS, and it was funded by $4.99 subscriptions. In the meantime, Read It Later, if it was covered at all in any press, they would say, like Instapaper. But it had 3.5 million users. It was available on iOS, Android, and it was a Firefox extension, and it was cheaper. So Nate is looking at this saying, I'm better, I have more users, I'm cheaper, I'm more free to reach, and I had a 6-month head start. But the world is talking about Instapaper, and they're comparing me to Instapaper instead of the other way around. So how he switched this was he shifted into more of a market mindset in which to position his product. So before his next release, instead of just saying, hey, here are all the great new features, he defined the context and in which his product had meaning. So he was pointing out, here's the iPhone 3G, the 3GS, the iPad, the 4G, the iPad 2, the 4S, the Kindle Fire, the iPad 3. And when you see more mobile devices getting out into the marketplace, behavior is shifting, and people are trying to read things later because they have much more information hitting them from many more devices. So there's a behavioral shift that went along with a much larger trend than the existence of Read It Later. And of course, they have their momentum numbers here, but the real focus was, as mobile is changing behavior, so this behavior is shifting and is becoming something that is important. In addition to that, they did many other things, but they also defined a context into which you might want to save more than just a web page. So they started talking about the rise of video and how people weren't just saving web pages, they were saving videos and photos. And what they did was they didn't just say, and people are saving videos, they were also pointing out facts that might be counterintuitive, like if you can save something for later, Look at the median length. 30 minutes for median video length if you were able to see and view it later. This is the antithesis of what everyone was believing at the time, which was if your video is more than 2 minutes long, nobody's going to watch it. So it was a novel data point based on their data. And then they brought all those shifts into life in their new product. So here you're saying videos are clearly labeled in your list. View by content type. So instead of just launching a series of features, they had already brought meaning into the context of why these features might have value. Then they also, over time, showed the ecosystem. They enabled it from a product perspective first and foremost, but they made sure that the ecosystem was always part of the conversation. Because you don't just save inside of Pocket or when you're on the web, you save inside of Twitter, or you save inside any of your news apps. And so they were trying to show that wherever it is you're trying to do this, we are there too. They did this without anyone on a marketing team and no one with a product marketing title in the company. They did it because the company made this shift. And here's where that landed them. So fast forward to 2017, or actually 2016 is where Instapaper's life ended. But if you try to Google their news, computer reseller news, anyone heard of that? Exactly. iOS and Android, they lowered their prices, but they were only up to 1.5 million users when they were bought by BetaWorks, and they were eventually an acqui-hire for 2 employees at Pinterest. And in contrast, Pocket went on to be best of everything you can imagine, iOS, Android, Firefox, Chrome, Mac, Kindle. They went to free, they raised $5 million, they went up to 20 million users, they had 1,000 app integrations, and they just became Mozilla's first ever acquisition. This was done through positioning. And that is the distinction I want you guys to take away from this about the difference between positioning and messaging. Positioning is the position that your product occupies in the marketplace. And it's what you do in its simplest form, and it's why you're different. It's far more than messaging. And more often than not, it's all the context that you put around your messaging that makes the positioning credible and interesting. The big failure I see is people will do a positioning statement that they base their messaging on, and they will think they check the box and that they're positioned. And that is not positioning. Positioning are a whole series of actions that the product, the company, BD, that everybody takes to occupy that position. And regardless of if you are in marketing or in product or in business development, it is everyone's job to help the company and the products occupy that position. It's not just a marketing function. So that is positioning. It's far bigger than what most people realize. But the primary vector through which a lot of people will perceive this and hear it is through a lot of what you do in messaging. So messaging is what you say consistently that leverages this positioning and helps move customers towards your desired actions. So depending if you're a consumer product versus a B2B product, it's you want you to convert someone to a lead versus you want them to actually download your app. Whatever it is, it's moving someone toward that. And so you'll try a variety of different things in messages that will pull them towards that desired action, but don't leave that position. Again, what I'm seeing today, because there are so many different channels through which we broadcast messaging, is people go with the message that gets the click and not the message that simultaneously gets a click but maintains our position. Because in a super crowded marketplace, you actually need to play the long game. Because if you're just playing the short game for clicks, you'll get clicks. But your position might get that at the expense, your company might get that at the expense of it occupying the position it wants to 12 months from now. So think about this, even though, again, you might be looking at tools like, okay, our Android ad and this is what was getting the clicks, and these are users that are retained really well after 30 days. Make sure you're playing a long game and that doesn't in any way sacrifice the position you want the company to occupy longer term. Okay, so this is where we get to our exercise. Hopefully, most of you, if not all of you, and if you don't have one of these, just work next to your neighbor, that's whoever's next to you. This is where you're going to take a quiz. It's not hard. You just need to circle the one that connects with you best, and then put an asterisk next to the one that would make you personally want to click more. So you're not trying to imagine this for your users, you're doing this for yourself. So circle the one that connects with you best, and then asterisk the one where you'd like to learn more. So we'll just take a few minutes for this. Just put your heads up when you're ready to talk about it. So we're going to do this by a simple vote and show of hands. How many of you picked statement 1 for the one that connects with you most? Blank software for small and medium businesses. By the way, in case you didn't know, every single one of these was real. I took them right off their web pages. Blank software for small and medium businesses says HR free to do great work, and if HR is free to do great work takes place. See how it works. How many of you picked that as a circle? How many of you picked it as an asterisk? Well, you're making this easy. Oh, 4, sorry, that was 4. All right, 2 and 4. All right. For statement number 1, payroll benefits in HR made easy, technology to make things simple, plus expert customer support when you need it. How many of you picked it as the one that connects with you most, the circle? 1, 2, 3. How many of you picked it as your asterisk? You want to learn more? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Statement number 3, the all-in-one HR platform that your employees will love. HR, payroll, time, benefits, talent. Circles. Anyone? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. How many of you picked it as your learn more? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Statement number 4, expense reports that don't suck. Hassle-free expense reporting built for employees and loved by admins. Hands up if this was your circle. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. All right. How many of you picked this as your asterisk? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. All right. Number 5, find your dream job or internship. Find a meaningful career no matter what school you attend, what your major is, or who you know. Hands high if this was your circle. 1, 2, 3. How about if it was your asterisk? 1, 2, 3, 4. Statement number 6, be great at what you do. Get started, it's free. Hands high if it was your circle. Asterisk? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8. Number 7, mobile users have higher expectations of customer support. Exceed the expectations of your mobile users with instant, proactive, and personalized in-app support. How many people picked it as their circle? 3. As your asterisk? 3. Number 8, a new model for customer service. Unlock your most extraordinary untapped assets, the knowledge and passion of your power users. Circle. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Asterisk. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Introducing Perimeter Scan. Site Scan includes a fully autonomous drone, a best-in-class camera, and automatic cloud processing to easily deliver the data needed to make decisions on the construction site. Circle. 4. Asterisk. 5. And last, setting the standard for drone data. Work-ready solutions that ensure data quality and accuracy. Circles. 3. Asterisks. 1. Okay. So, in terms of our circle, we had a big winner. And in terms of our asterisks, we had a couple that were up there. So for those of you that chose, actually, we'll go through, so we'll do the big reveal of who these were. Do people know who these companies were? First one, Bamboo HR. Any surprises there? The second one was Gusto. Third one was Namely, which was second place. So for those of you that chose Namely as your circle, tell us why. 14 of you, yes.
I thought it was just super simple and straight to the point and touched on a pain point that I've kind of seen before, which is having all these in one place and getting the data to it and instead of having multiple systems doing different things.
Said it very simply. It was all right there. You didn't have to get through any marketing fluff. It was like, okay, I know exactly what this is. In the back with your hand high.
If you just read the first 4 words, you get a lot.
All-in-one HR platform. Yeah. Why else did 14 of you pick Namely?
Yes, it addresses the buyer and makes sure that they know the user will like it.
Your employees will love. So it says it's not just, hey, it's this great, really hard to use thing. Your employees will actually love it. Why else?
By naming all the features, HR, payroll, time, benefits, and talent, one of those is going to connect with you. In fact, you can tie all those in one place.
So you have immediate line of sight to the scope of this. You don't have to dig down.
Main point at the current time.
Yes. Okay. So you can connect with the problem. It also gives you a sense of scope. It's stated simply. It connects you with the fact that the people that will actually be using it will enjoy it. Any other reasons why we chose? Yes.
It tells me straight away that my use case is served.
Yes. All right. Whether or not will this or will this not solve my problem, I know very, very quickly. All right. And then our big winner was an old version of Expensify. So why did this resonate with so many of you?
Time targeting.
A pain point. What's the pain point?
Expense reports are really.
And does it say expense reports are really difficult to do? They suck. And so what is that versus saying that expense reports are really difficult? Yes.
It just got me emotionally.
Yeah, they spoke to you as a human being, and they said what you feel as opposed to the problem statement. And I point this out just because so much messaging is restatements of the problem statement or using very formal language. And I've put this in front of so many different marketers, and this is always the one that resonates the most because it speaks so humanely and just treats it as, well, yeah, totally, it sucks. Why else did we choose this? All 24 of you. One of the other 24. Why did you choose it? In the back.
I was an admin once.
You felt the pain. So which part of it spoke to you?
Well, both that it would make, if I was still an admin, it'd make my life.
Yeah. Loved by admins. It's not just a problem felt by the people doing it, it's a problem felt by the people processing it too. Okay. So it was very human, it spoke to us very authentically, and it said how we're going to feel as a result of interacting with this product, not just telling us the things that it does. Next one was Handshake. Next was LinkedIn, which didn't score well in connecting with you, but was one of our winners in wanting to make you click and learn more. Why is that for the 12 of you that picked it? Why?
It's free.
It's free. All right, so that resonates. It's a magic word, free. But besides free, any other reasons why people wanted to learn more? Yeah.
Tapped into the aspiration of everyone wants to be great.
So was it the aspirational that made you want to click more? You're like, I have no idea what this is, but I must. So there's curiosity and intrigue. They don't put it all up there. Now, of course, LinkedIn is a super mature company, and if you're landing here, you probably have some context that makes it easy for them to start here. But you guys didn't know, or did anyone know this was LinkedIn when they choose that? Is that Zoe? Yeah. You knew it was LinkedIn?
I did.
Did you check it as one of your, no. All right, so who else picked it as one of their 12? And why did you do so? Why did you want to learn more? Is it just curiosity? Any other reasons? 12 of you? Or 11 of you? Yeah.
It was a clear call to action, but it's low commitment.
Yeah. Be great at what you do. Get started, it's free. So it's an invitation, but you didn't feel like you were going to be trapped in something. All right. Next was Help Shift, which didn't really register much with a lot of you. And then here's Directly, a new model for customer service. So for the 12 of you that decided, I want to learn more, because the very next product, or actually, sorry, these products do very similar things in slightly different spaces. Why do we want to click more for Directly's? The 12 of you that chose this. Yes.
Sounds like a really cool concept.
What about it made it sound cool?
That it's really not the way that I'm used to seeing customer service.
A new model for customer service. Unlock your most extraordinary untapped. Like what were there specific words that did that for you?
That other people will do it.
That you're tapping into the passion of your power users. Other reasons why people were curious about this. Or do we list all of them? Any other reasons why people found it curiosity provoking and make them want to learn more? Yes.
So like you're cutting edge and kind of innovative with your model.
You're at very least curious, what is cutting edge? What does that look like? Let me learn more in the back.
I think it seemed like you got something for free. So you have these users and they're untapped and all I have to do is buy this product and then I get this awesome benefit.
So you're like, huh, that a really good idea. Why wouldn't I do that? There was sort of an invitation of a new way of thinking. And so when they say a new model for customer service, they're also providing you what in the model is new that might not be immediately intuitive. So they didn't make you click to figure out some of why it might be new to make it credible. And then we had perimeter scan. So it's interesting, actually, that something that was hyper-specific. For those of you that were interested in learning more, what made you want to click Learn More? Because it's a very specific vertical product. Yes.
It was specific, and it didn't have the fluff of some of the other things. It doesn't presume things about what I feel or think. It's just this is what it is. And if that's what I'm looking for, that's what I would go for.
What area do you work in?
Not this, but autonomous systems is of great interest to me.
Yeah, so you work, or so you, I don't know, do you work in that area, or?
No, is the short answer.
Okay, all right. Well, so for anyone else that chose something that was hyper-specific, hyper-vertical, is there a reason why these two companies do practically this, very, very similar things? Why did you like the one that seemed a little long and very explanatory? Why did that make you want to click more than the one that was a little higher level? You want to address that? Of the remaining four? Yeah.
I mean, I chose that one as my favorite, primarily because if you look at the space, and I'm on it, but if you look at the space, it's full of fluff. Like every drone company is doing something that's going to completely revolutionize, and this one had a very specific use case that got to the point, and knew exactly what I was getting. But I appreciate that as a consumer.
So this is a very important thing for those of you that market to very technical fields, security, anything that's a development tool, anything like that. Your audience likes to feel respected. Your audience just wants the facts and they want to make judgments on their own. And so while it is not the marketing reflex is this. It's shorter, it's tighter, it's a little higher level, but is that appropriate for your audience? And so we'll talk about this as we dive into our toolbox, but you always want to pay special attention to who is this for and what are they expecting when they land here. So let me give them what they want, because that begins the process of building trust and making any claims that I want to say valid. So part of what you guys experienced in this quiz that made those that you liked over those that you preferred a little bit less, and especially in adjacent spaces, where they chose to be clear versus comprehensive. Now it's interesting, particularly in that drone example, where there was actually a lot there. It was somewhat comprehensive, but it was very clear what it did in a highly technical space, so there it might be appropriate. So you have to really make this judgment call based on who your audience is and where they are, where you are as a company in your cycle. Are you early? Are you sort of into this bigger fat part of the bell curve where there's context? Because if you're early, you might want to explain a little bit more because we just don't have enough context. If you're a little bit later stage and there's a little bit more context, then you can afford to be a little higher level. But choosing clarity over comprehensiveness, very, very important. Here's an example. Oh, yes.
I'm curious why you separated out which one connects with you versus which one you would click Learn More for.
So part of that is there's messaging that connects with us emotionally, but doesn't necessarily fill the bill in a call to action that we might need as marketers. Where it's sort of like, okay, this one wasn't very connected. However, it was very curiosity provoking, and I might need that for lead gen, and so I'm going to make a trade-off. And they don't necessarily do the same. The ideal is that you have something that's high on both. So this does pretty well on both. This, I would basically work, like if I did this test and I said, well, this is really low on connecting, but it's really good at getting people to click, I would say, what can we do to make this a little more connected to our audience? Is it being emotional? It's not always that. Sometimes you have to be hyper-rational. Again, it depends on your audience, but the ideal has both. And oftentimes people either, for like brand-based, it's all emotional and very little on this side. And you want to balance depending on what your goals are. So that's why I separate them. All right, so this is Netflix from 8 years ago when they were just primarily DVDs landing in your inbox. What makes this clear? What makes this good? Any ideas?
I think free trial. It's free.
Free trial, yeah, no risk. Just go for it. But what else? You know what they do? If you hadn't heard of Netflix 8 years ago, do you know what they do? It says it right there. Rent as many movies as you want for only $8.99. Why might that have been relevant? What was happening in the marketplace at this time? Hand in the back.
At that time, it was expensive to get a lot of movies.
How would you do it?
Go to Blockbuster.
Go to Blockbuster. And what was the cost of a new release with one late fee?
A lot.
More than that. Yeah. So without saying, oh, we're so much more convenient than going to your local Blockbuster, they were messaging right into how people experience the problem. Rent as many movies as you want. What? I can get more than just one movie for the price of one movie? What else did they say? Underneath the basic, here's what we do for you.
Free shipping.
Free shipping, why does that matter?
Because some of the cost of it.
It's convenience. I'm programmed to believe driving to my local Blockbuster and standing in line and looking for the movies is convenient, and they're trying to say, like, no, redefine convenience. Have it land in your front door, in your mailbox. That's easier, way easier. What else did they say? In the back.
There's really clear pricing and fees. Doesn't seem like there's anything hidden there.
Very clear on pricing. So you brought up the Blockbuster example. When you walked into a Blockbuster on a Friday night, what did they not have? New releases. What else did they not have? The second DVD of that TV show that you were totally hooked on was gone. And if you're a cinephile, they never had classics. So instead of saying 20 million titles and counting, they said classics to new releases to TV episodes. Now this is the kind of thing that's kind of invisible. You're like, oh, okay, but was very explicitly and thoughtfully done. Let's message into the gap. The gap of the experience of walking into your Blockbuster. It's not just the price, but the products that you want aren't there, and we're going to tell you can get the products you want. Cancel anytime, reduces risk. Okay, so fast forward a handful of years where they're primarily streaming. Yeah, you can also get those envelopes, but what has shifted in the market landscape that is being reflected in their messaging now? Anytime, anywhere. So what's happening? Is it about your DVDs landing in your door anymore? No. It's about your mobile device. It's about your iPad. It's about whatever screen. And what else has shifted? It's cheaper because there's nothing physical? Yes.
There's a button.
There's a button to start your free trial. Yeah. Boom. Yeah. What else?
1 month free trial.
1 month free trial, and Netflix they actually can showcase the product here. And so they're showing you, like, hey, it's not those little envelopes anymore. We're actually showing you, look at how different this experience is. So what is the key differences in this experience? What does this look like to you? Watching a movie in a movie theater. And what does this look like to you? Watching TV in a lit family room. What happened in the content landscape in this time frame? What's the number one thing that drives habitual viewing of Netflix? Is it movies? It's what? It's what? Binge watching. Binge watching of what? Movies? TV. So how do they reflect this? They show the TV, but they literally say, watch TV shows and movies. Notice that's not rent as many movies as you want. And here it says, watch TV shows and movies, because they know that's what drives their desired behavior. They want you, and that's the stuff that you care about now. It's kind of like, yeah, okay, I can get some movies now and at the end, but I'm really hooked on Orange is the New Black or whatever the show happens to be. So they moved into where the market was, and they messaged in a way that tried to bring you into the experience that you wanted to have. And of course, which serves their desired behavior. And this is where they are now. So Netflix is a household name. They don't need to say what they do. What do they say? Yeah, so what is Netflix doing that is just completely disrupting around original content?
Producing its own show.
It's producing its own shows, but what's the frequency with which they're putting them out there? Does anyone know that the latest Netflix release? No, you can't even keep up, right? It's like, what, there's another new Netflix show? But I better check it out because it's going to be part of the zeitgeist, and people are going to be talking about it. So what do they message? Not anytime, anywhere, not the price. They're messaging zeitgeist. See what's next. Be part of that conversation, because that's the game that they're playing now. They are a studio. They are content production, and they are the delivery system behind it. But that's what is creating their market differentiation. So that's how they message into it. So every evolution that they went through, they messaged very clearly and very well into what was important for their business. And also it was very clear to their consumers based on how you want to live your life or the problems that you are experiencing. So clarity has to do with a lot of things. It's not just the words that you choose, it's the market context into which you are marketing. Here's another example on the B2B side. So this is just, let's see, 2014 is about 3 years ago. So Zendesk. Do we know what they do? Beautifully simple. Zendesk is software for better customer service. Why is this good?
Concise.
Clear and it's concise. Do you know what's different about them? Take a guess. If you had to guess, what's different about them? You knew nothing about the space. What's that?
Desktop and mobile.
Just context. They're showing like, hey, we're on every platform. Any other thing that they're saying? What's that? Simple. And not just simple, what kind of simple? Beautifully simple. So if I say beautifully simple, what is that going to connote to me, even if I'm not in this space? Is it going to be ugly and easy to use, nicely designed? It's going to be like, it's going to be a breath of fresh air when I'm in this product. Yes.
But isn't that kind of meaningless? Because like every piece of software now says they're beautiful or they're simple.
And do you know why every piece of software says that now? Because Zendesk did it so well, and they completely revolutionized their space. We're like, if we have really good design, then what we should say is that we're beautifully simple. So if you looked at their statistics at this time in terms of how their website was compared to every other B2B player, it had 5x the page views, like 3x the time on site. It was just massively outperforming the entire rest of the B2B category. And so, of course, everyone in this time frame started saying, hey, we want to work on our messaging. I say, like, well, go look at Zendesk. Yes.
So is that because the product was well designed and easy to use, or because they said the words beautifully simple?
It was because the product. So we don't have time for everything in this session, but the very first place in which you start marketing is with your product. Your product has to be something great. Your product has to have a differentiated position you want to occupy in the market, and then that lets your marketers try and occupy that position. The breakdown that happens a lot is the product gets created and they say, marketers, here! And it becomes their job to spiff it up and to put the right words around it. The ideal, absolute ideal, best practice is when product and marketing work together. So there's understanding of what's the gap in the market that you want to fill so that the product is occupying that space. And that's the recipe for success, where you're not just trying to kind of navigate your way through where you've landed, but where you can actually strategically say, this is where we need to be in 8 months, and here's how we can get there. It's a roadmap. It's not a product roadmap. It's a roadmap for the company and how the functions all come together. So this is where they are now. We can lend a hand. If you didn't even know what was happening with the company's strategy, what would you know by how their messaging is different? Any ideas? Is it a single product company anymore? No. So just from a business perspective, we know, okay, it's not just about support, which is where they were, it's now about all these different pieces. So I don't know the answer of whether or not this is more effective, but I can tell you it shows us tea leaf-wise what is strategically important for them as a business. So this is an example of them choosing positioning over what might be clear short-term messaging. We have to be perceived as a product portfolio company and not just a single product company. So we're going to over-index on this because it's that important for us as a business. So what is right for you and what is clear might have to do as much with your business objectives as it does with who your audience is. So all these things are part of your calculus. So, and here's one that's totally on the nerdy end of the zone. Amazon Web Services, again, many years ago. What makes this good? Yes.
It's showing some of the best success that AWS has had in the market.
Totally. It's like, look, if you want to be, who doesn't want to be a hot startup? But the hottest startups, the fastest, hardest starting groups are building their businesses on Amazon Web Services. And so this is when they were starting. And this is when they were trying to prove themselves and say, if you want to be like these guys, you should use us. Of course, now everyone on the planet knows AWS. And so here's who they are today. Who are they talking to? Developers. Everybody knows, of course, like AWS is part of your consideration set. The only question is, like, is it them or is it the Google's cloud platform? And so it has to be a technical evaluation immediately. And so they don't mess around. They just drop you in to the stuff that you want to know. This is like that drone example. Like, just tell me what I need to know because I need to do technical assessment. Stop the marketing fluff. I don't need it. You already know who I am. Talk to me. So clear for who their audience was. If you were trying to give this to a business decision maker, they would be totally lost. So this is an example of making sure that you're saying the right thing to the right audience. And part of this is how you show your authenticity, and it's choosing to be authentic versus authoritative. And so all those examples that I showed were very authentic in how they messaged. They were, and even the ones that you guys choose here, especially like the Expensify one, and even the drone one, even the directly one. Hey, this is who we are. This is exactly what we do. Here's an example of how this takes shape. So again, messaging isn't just the stuff that lands on your web page. It's every customer communication that goes out, every letter, every automatic email that goes out that's triggered by your product platform is part of your messaging. And here's an example that came from Netflix. So they had a little blip in their streaming service. We're sorry you may have had trouble watching instantly. Dear Martina, they used my name. Yesterday, you may have had trouble instantly watching TV episodes or movies due to technical issues. We're sorry for the inconvenience. Here's a little credit. Check out our latest selection, the Netflix team. And that's in contrast to Carbonite here, who had a different situation. They had a lot of backup on their customer service lines, so people weren't able to get through, and they were getting really frustrated and mad. So they said, you know what? We need to send a letter from the CEO because then people will know we're serious. So from the CEO, it said, Dear Carbonite customer, in the past couple of weeks, our response time to customer inquiries has been much too long. It's because of a major upgrade, blah, blah, blah. Please feel sorry for us. Only online backup companies provides free chat. Thank you for your business. We appreciate your patience and understanding. David Friend, CEO. Would anyone believe this came from the CEO? No. And yet internally someone's saying it has to be from the CEO for people to take it seriously. No. This is authentic versus authoritative. Totally inauthentic. And then they slap the CEO's name on it. That poor CEO. It's not helping him gain credibility with anybody. As a matter of fact, it seems very disingenuous. So authenticity has to do with treating people as humans, even if it doesn't come from the CEO. Like, I feel way more connected to the Netflix team, even though it's not a person, because people are like, oh, it has to be a signature. No, it has to be real. That's being authentic versus authoritative. And here's point of view centric versus product-centric. And before some of you guys came in, I was having a conversation with someone that's on BD of Puppet Labs, where it's not just about the product, it's about the point of view in which the person that's receiving this messaging needs to feel that they're a part of. So this is taken from, many of you might have seen this already, Azura sales deck. It was widely passed around saying, like, this is the greatest sales deck ever. But what made it really good was they were providing a context into which there was meaning. And so messaging, especially for anyone in a B2B context, one of the most important places for you to capture this is in your sales deck. So big relevant change in the world. We now live in a subscription economy. It doesn't start off talking about product, doesn't start talking about price. It's just what's the context into which I need to place this conversation. We're living in a different era. Here's how things have changed over time. So we forget, everyone in this room, that the rest of the world outside of here is moving at about half our speed. And so we're kind of like, oh yeah, that was so yesterday. No, it's today for the people that we're talking to. And so they actually look to us to provide guidance. What does tomorrow look like? What is next generation or new model? Because we don't know. We're the ones that are creating it. And so they appreciate being guided to, like, well, what does this look like? Help me understand. And then, of course, you want to present the happily ever after. We want the subscription experience. Here are the components of it. No doubt that aligns very nicely with their feature and function set. And then, of course, they provide their features as magical gifts that actually help provide this fabulous new subscription economy. So they're providing a context into which these feature sets and how they've bundled them are particularly meaningful. So that is providing that point of view beyond just the product-centric view, which is kind of this, which is like, hey, here's our feature function checklist, which you need. It's essential and it's important, but that's not your messaging. All right, so great messaging toolbox, which we'll be practicing, is first and foremost, and this is something that we've all talked about, is knowing who your buyer is. And so persona, and Amanda this morning actually talked about, she said, oh, I hate personas because it reduces a business traveler to someone that's just a business traveler when they might be a business traveler during the week and they are a casual consumer of fun trips on the weekend. So personas, the best ones, are rich. They don't reduce the person to, like, this person is a business traveler alone. They talk about the fact that they might be a business traveler during the week, but they like to travel a lot during weekends. And here's what that behavior is like. So you want to capture richness. And the other thing I see missing in a lot of persona work is people don't talk about the customer life, the customer's journey. How do they discover and find and engage with us? What's the flow? Because people will talk about attributes. They make this much money, they're located in this place, they use these products. But how do they discover us? How do they encounter us? So with the Netflix example, How they would encounter perhaps looking for Netflix is standing in line waiting while they're trying to buy, to rent these movies. And they're like, oh my God, this sucks. I just want to be home watching the movie. So what would they search for? Is that the moment in which they might try and find us? Or is the moment which somebody's talking about content and someone's like, I want you to try this Netflix thing. So what are those moments? Make sure those are captured in your persona work, because that is what lets you market well as a marketer. Then you want to test the baseline. This is really important. Always assume your first messaging is wrong or halfway right, as that you're testing two different vectors. Try things that are very different, because what I'll see people do is they'll do tests of 3 messages that are very close. The difference between gray, black, and white. Try purple and try red, or try something that's inorganic versus organic in terms of feel and place. Try something that's emotive and try something that's hyper-rational. Make them extremes, because then you can learn something in the comparison of that data. So assume that it's wrong, but try and maximize whatever you test for your learning. And then you want to prove your claims and you want to revise. So that's kind of the basic stuff. So here's just some examples of spiffing up actual positioning statements or messaging that I've seen on various web pages. So this is one. This was B2C. It's an easy, all-in-one business solution. Zimbra's next generation email calendaring, instant messaging, online document authoring, and more. It's everything you need to take your organization to the next level, whether it's 2 or 200,000 people. So we see this stuff like this a lot. And this tries to just reduce it down to what people might need to hear. The integrated email you like on your desktop, on the web for free. So it's landing you, it's providing some context. And then the very first bullet isn't a benefit, it's not a problem statement, it says 3 million users and growing. Because if you're going to take the time to invest transitioning yourself to a new integrated email platform, you better be sure it's going to be around. So that validation might be the single most important thing that someone needs to see. Now again, this depends on where you are on that customer acquisition curve, and if you're early, what does someone need to hear? It's not what you want to say, it's what they need to hear. Combines email calendar instant messaging, says that very simply, simplifies document sharing. Instead of having a kitchen sink sentence, it breaks it out so you can even parse it. And then, very important for conversion is, how easy is it for me to start migrating? Easily converts Microsoft Outlook, Google Mail, or Yahoo, saving all contacts, folders, and data. So it immediately mitigates risk for me to take this step and try something new. Here's another one on the B2B side. Our digital business platform, Avoca Transact, increases agility, speed to market for organizations, building competitive advantage around mobile and digital customer acquisition. So, slightly spiffed up, we make modern, world-class customer service easy. Improves your customer's experience by uniting onboarding and tracking across every device. It just says very simply what it does instead of all this highfalutin stuff. Design once, drag and drop content creation is mobile responsive, so shows the same experience everywhere. I'm starting to understand what it does before having to click in or believe its claims. It's telling me exactly what it's going to do for me and why I might believe what it's trying to claim. A/B testing built in, so learn without release cycles. So it's giving me a lot of very explicit, concrete benefits that I can map to and say, oh, I know where this is going to go. At the very least, it might want to let me click more. It might not be emotive, but it is helping me, in this particular case, judge whether or not this is even correct or makes sense for me. So I talked about getting that baseline. One of my favorite ways to do this is little micro-surveys. You can do this as somebody exits your website, or you can even just have conversations, but it's asking an open-ended question. A micro-survey is literally like one question, or maybe a 2-part question. And in this particular instance, this was a search as SaaS. Why didn't you try Index Tank? What can we do to meet your needs? And they had a variety of responses. I'm not sure, I haven't used it enough, but I think it's probably a good idea, nice short survey, good work, keep rocking. Then the second bullet point, pay for what you use a la Google App Engine. This is someone that knows exactly what they're looking for and they can tell you what the deficit is. That third bullet, my needs you can't. I was just looking around. I was a student who majored in game development, so pretty much any site that offers a free trial of anything technically related causes me to sign up and poke around. Don't take it personally. I have hundreds of services I play with but never use, etc., etc. So when they did this survey, what they realized was they thought they were only marketing to people that understood search. And they realized it actually broke out into 3 very separate audiences. One, the sampler. They will probably never be a user. They will probably never be in the pipeline or funnel, but they're actually important in the developer community as potential evangelists because they go to meetups. They're hyper social. They try everything. They're the ones participating in different forums saying like, oh, I tried this tool and it seemed pretty cool. I haven't used it, but maybe it's of use to you. So they realize there's a whole group of potential evangelists that might try this and could be future evangelists even though they'll never be users, but they are important because half of the people that chose to respond were that type of user. So are you arming evangelists so that they can market on your behalf? The search expert is who they always assumed they were talking to, but then they realize IT at a big website sees things differently. They are not search experts. They are experts in their website and their business, and they're trying to figure out where search plays in. So they have a slightly different lens. So because of that, they developed this one sheet, which I'll introduce you to, and they basically try to classify like powerful APIs for today's apps. That's for the dabbler, the person that might be the evangelist. Custom search that you can control. That's for that middle group, the people that really know and understand search and have very specific needs. And that last bucket was easy, fast, and hosted. That's for the big IT, big website IT guy, because it's like, oh, okay, that's the stuff I care about. And so they basically broke their messaging out against those audiences because they realized they all were important. And then they tested them. So they tried this. Easily add search to your apps, build it right from the start. This was them trying to position into a lot more people were doing development of mobile UIs and using search as part of that. And what they realized was it actually wasn't the right thing for their business. So where they landed was easily add powerful search to your site. Good search is good for business. It was good for their business. It was also good for the people that were most likely to be their customers. So that's where they landed. So when I talk about proof in that little, like here's your toolbox, quantify advantages, I'm not going to go through all of these, but however you can do it, make it explicit. And especially for those of you that are earlier on that don't have the marketing rights to talk about different customers, talk about them in aggregate. 4 out of the top 5 banks or 6 out of the top 10 blankety blank. However you can categorize and quantify so people can understand, oh, they're validated, oh, they're trusted. That stuff matters a lot, especially if you're early. So this is the one-sheet messaging framework. I think you guys are getting all of these assets afterwards, and so it's something that you can use. It's really easy to, if you don't actually get the template yourselves, it's an easy thing to create in a Google Sheet, which I encourage because then everyone can just pile in, or not Google Sheet, but a Google Doc, just pile in and start editing together. But at the very top is the positioning. This might not be a sentence you use anywhere, but it states very simply what the product does. Then the 3 buckets, sometimes you might be 4, but it's the support/key benefits. I don't say that they're just benefits because sometimes the right thing might just be a supportive statement. It is the validation statement example that I made, used by 3 million people or used by 10% of the top Fortune 100. Customer segments there is just so that you can attach which segment the messaging might be relevant to, because not all messaging is relevant to every party. So it's really good for someone when you pass down that messaging to then see like, oh, I'm trying to do a campaign for business decision makers in HR. I'll just look at all the circles and I'll only include the circles in this thing that I'm producing. And so that's kind of how you use granimals marketing or messaging. And then this proof stuff down at the bottom, in nearly all cases, now this is different for consumer apps, but for business B2B, it's all customer stories, customer facts, because that's all that people care about that really proves things to them. And in the case of B2C, it's more if you're claiming a performance benefit, well, how much better is it? The consumer side is always like, oh, you're asking me to change. How much pain do I have to experience for that change to be worth it? And so there it might be things around converters or the ability to save things or how little bit of time it actually takes to do some of these tasks. So again, it's very contextually specific to who your market is. So best practices, I'm actually not going to read all of these to you because I actually want you to practice these, but the 2 that I will say are really, really important are to always practice your messaging in a conversation, because that's what other people need to do. And especially in this very disaggregated, disintermediated world where other people are doing most of your marketing to you, they need to be able to say it out loud. So practice saying it out loud. If you can't even get it off your tongue, there's definitely something that's not working with it. And then the bottom one, don't be your own editor, because everything you're saying in your company makes complete sense to you. And so you won't be a good judge of whether or not, for someone that's experiencing this for the first time, whether or not it actually makes sense, or whether it's as clean and as clear as you believe it is. So everyone in this room, volunteer to be somebody else's editor, because that's how you can get stuff to be much better. or get an advisor, or use your true resources, whatever it is, but have somebody else from the outside look at your stuff. All right, now's where we actually get to practice ourselves. So since this is a big group, I'll just say, let's just try and get to groups of maybe 6. And what you get to do is you get to pick one of these statements and rewrite it and make it better based on what we just talked about. And you can choose any of them, and we'll take about 10 minutes-ish to go through the rewriting exercise. Make sure as you guys are trying to improve this that you're saying why. Is it clearer? Is it more, do you want to identify who the audience is and say, I think we should start with this audience and let's write it for this audience. So I will ask you when you report out, who is this for and what is the statement? Questions? Go to it. So Scott, you guys were done first. Which statement did you rewrite? Number 10. Who was it for? Who did you rewrite it for?
I rewrote the customers.
For which customer?
The individual buyers.
All right, so now this is an example. Who specifically is that buyer?
The technical buyers doing the service.
The technical buyer doing the survey? Okay, so we'll call this person the surveyor. All right, so I like this suggestion of like, you have to guess which one they rewrote. All right, what's your statement? This is for a surveyor. A surveyor of?
Let your drone work for you. High quality and accurate data from a remote control.
Let your drone work for you. So what was the second part?
High quality and accurate data from a remote control.
High quality and accurate data from a remote control. What do we think of this? If you think you're a surveyor and you deal with drones, let your drone work for you. High quality and accurate data from a remote control. Is this telling us anything new? So if you actually use a drone to do surveying, is there any question about what the drone does for you? They work for you. It's probably doing some of the work for you. So is that illuminating something? High quality and accurate data from a remote control. Back.
So I'm cheating a little bit because at some point I wrote position statement 9.
Good. That's perfectly allowed.
I know a ton about what these people are. We actually worked on position statement 9 here.
Awesome.
I could also provide that as a contrast. But
Yes,
I think the
bring it on.
suggestion for that one
Yes.
is that drones are still something that are very mystical creatures. And if I am a surveyor, which I'm now a surveyor in training, so I shouldn't say this, I actually don't know what drones can do for me. And I say it like that, and I say, these are the things I do at work. None of these things have to do with, I can't read it from here, but high quality, accurate data. I don't really know what that means. And data at my remote control, I don't really know what that means. I would like to know how this tool is helping me every day.
Awesome.
And the contrast I had for number 9.
First of all, so who is it for? Is it also for a surveyor?
It's for a surveyor.
Okay,
I
great.
can use it right. And I'd love to get feedback here. Save time and money on topographic surveys with a simple self-flying drone.
With a simple self-flying drone. So when we compare the first and second sentence, which one makes it clear that a drone is part of the service? Second one. So the second one, I'll read them out loud. Let your drone work for you. High quality and accurate data from remote control. Do you know what this is? If it's software, if it's a drone, if it's a service? Do you have a sense from that first one? Kind of. Don't think. I'm seeing people go like this. So I'm just going to say, probably not. Save time on the topo surveys with a simple self-flying drone. Does this make clear at least whether or not the drone's involved in the package? Okay. So, and what's your name in the back? Dan. All right, so to Dan's point, as a surveyor, you're experiencing pain. And while this tells you exactly what the product may be doing, this one is messaging to more of the pain that might motivate drone adoption. Save time and money on your topographic surveys with a simple self-flying drone. We had to vote which of these two is more compelling for the surveyor. How many of you, I'll put B and A. How many of you vote for A? How many for B? Okay, so overwhelmingly B. Why? So, but to Scott Group's credit, so this is really actually so important. Most of the people that have marketing in their title in this room, the reflex will be to do a statement like A. It says what it does, it is accurate, it conveys what's happening here. And it's really difficult to get in the mindset of what the person needs to hear. And that's what's crucial in messaging. What do they need to hear, not what do I want to say? And if that's the only thing you remember from this session, let it be that. What do they need to hear, not what do we want to say? So for those of you that chose the second statement, why? What was this doing that was better for you? Benefits / relating to my pain? Yeah, and it was very specific, topographic surveys. It didn't say on surveys, it said topographic surveys because that's where a drone can actually make things easier, because otherwise I have to hoof it from one place to the next. Save time and money, because it is time intensive and it's expensive to do that with a simple, it's another thing that was good. Do people think that drones are easy right now? How many people here have tried flying a drone? How many people thought it was easy? So we got a cool drone, someone gave it to her because we're like, oh cool, this will be easy. It's from Radio Shack, it connects to our phone, it's gonna be easy. And it was so difficult to control. So simple, oh, okay, so I don't have to be a drone genius to figure this out, awesome. So there's a lot of really positive stuff going on here. Okay, so next, Chris's group, you guys.
All right, so we're not telling you what term we redid, we want to know the persona.
Yes, who's it for?
Business professional.
What kind?
Just someone that wants to connect with people.
Okay, biz professional. Who wants to connect?
Who wants to get themselves out there?
Okay, let me ask a question. Show of hands, how many people in this room would consider themselves introverts? So, who is this for? Is it for, if you had to pick, is it for the extroverted universe or the introverted universe?
It's for people, it's more for the introvert, people that have trouble.
It's way easier for me to show myself online than it is to show up in person. Okay, so we just made a very nuanced pivot that might shift either how this is perceived or whether or not it's emotionally resonant. Okay. You are who you know. We remember names and faces. What was it? So you don't have to. All right, so for those of you that put up your hands in the introverted universe, how many of you don't like social situations because you're like, oh, I can't remember that person's name when I show up? Oh, come on. How many of us? Yeah.
I'm a super extrovert, but I'm at that point in my life where I'm like, I know I remember your name. So we remember names and faces, so you don't have to. That message is to a very specific pain problem, introverted or extroverted universe. You are who you know, though. So why did you choose that?
We started off with something along the lines of, like, have you ever met a person that could make you great, but forgot their name? Didn't have their contact info. So that was kind of the message where we started, was like, you meet people that can kind of went from there, be great at what you do.
So let me ask the room a question. If you were choosing an opening salvo for this, you are who you know, or have you ever met someone who could make you great? Show of hands, how many think you are who you know would be more resonant? Versus, have you ever met someone that could help make you great? This is another thing I see happen all the time. Where we land is inferior to the thought process where we started, where we're talking, where we're having conversations, and we're bandying about ideas. We're being authentic in our conversation around the ideas, we come up with the stuff that we actually really want to say. Like tape record yourselves, because I can promise you that messaging will be better than the stuff that lands on the paper. I don't know what it is, it just happens that way. As we're massaging it, it kind of gets neutralized and all the humanity gets plucked out of it. It's just part of the process. So as you're trying to make your messaging better, remember that. The early brainstorming where you're just kind of talking and keeping it very real and authentic, that's the stuff where it gets more magical, more connective. So I know there were other groups that were working on LinkedIn. Yes, let's do that as a contrast statement.
This one is unlock the power of your professional network. And then bullet points, find a job, recruit a candidate, discover new customers, and build your brand, or create your brand.
Okay, I know this is impossible for most people to see. Discover new, what was it? Customers, okay. So obviously we all know in this room that LinkedIn does many things for many people. And this attempts to capture that. Unlock the power of your professional network. Find a job, recruit candidates, create your brand, discover new customers. What do we think about this? Plus or minus? Is there anything that we think is really great about it? It tells you comprehensively what it does. Is it emotionally resonant? Is it connecting with us? Is it authentic in any way? Is it telling us something that we might not already know? Is it messaging into a problem space? Is it giving us benefits versus just saying, create your brand? Is that a benefit? How many people think of themselves as a brand? I know everyone talks about that. Who here really genuinely thinks of themselves as a human being as a brand? Is that what you guys meant, or did you mean the company? Okay. So this is part of the zeitgeist conversation. There are books, there are like, it's like, oh no, people aren't, your career path, you're a brand. But if we're honest, do people really feel like do people want to be a brand? No, you want to be yourself. And you want that to have value in this world. So if we were to try and like put a more authentic lens through this, what would be some way that even if we kept all the elements of it, the atomic parts similar, how can we, yes?
So we also did LinkedIn, and I liked that message, but it was kind of on the long side, so we kind of consolidated it. So ours is really similar, and it goes.
Hang on, I'm just going to write it down, so give me a minute. Okay.
Professional online networking. Unlock the right connections fast. Sign up for free.
Online networking. Unlock. What was this? The right connections fast. Sign up for free. What do we think of? So we've got three very different approaches. We have one that is trying to message very much in the problem space. We remember the names and faces so you don't have to. And the motive, like, have you ever met someone, let's just say meet someone up here. Have you ever met someone that could make you great? So emotive and connecting to like, oh, we've all had that moment where we've forgotten the names and face. This, which is very rational, unlock the power of your professional network, find a job, so it's all these statements that are true. Professional online networking, unlock the right connections fast, sign up for free. Pluses or minuses in this approach?
I think the right connections is actually almost the pain point and speaks to this group's, first group's statement in that it's a busy world out there. You're meeting a lot of people online or off, and you don't know who to kind of go forth and conquer.
So it's unlocking very specifically the right connections, and the keyword there being fast. It's not like unlock the right connections in a month from now. It's unlock the right connections fast. Yes.
That's one thing, I think that's going more towards the extrovert. Because if you're not, it's a different.
Different person, yes, different persona.
That's telling me that I'm going to go on to LinkedIn and I'm going to go find the network.
Yes.
Right, so I think, which isn't,
yes.
It's just different.
Absolutely. And so this is the challenge with messaging. is you might decide, we want to run a campaign that connects us with people that feel disconnected. And so that's, whoopsie, where we're going to get a little more connective, emotive, forgetting the names and faces, just naming the problems that are more human, versus the kind of more ambitious extroverty types. This is a sales tool, or someone that's just, I worked with this VP of marketing who, like, she came in, took over a 30-person organization. The very first day, she's like, every single one of you needs to update your LinkedIn profile and manage your career proactively. Like, that was just who she was, just hard driving, and she believed that was essential and important. Yes?
I'm not sure online really helps, because the way I use LinkedIn, and maybe I'm projecting other people use it the same way, is I'm using it as a tool for offline networking. In contrast, I use Facebook more for online to keep in touch with people I know all over the country that I really just stay in touch with online. But LinkedIn, I'm always trying to meet the person or get them on the phone.
So here's a question. Do any of you think of networking as a non-professional thing?
Yeah. We had this discussion. Networking is used so broadly now. You can think of the social network. In fact, it's the name of a movie. And so we thought it was important to stipulate that this was for professional, some word related to work related, as opposed to just not qualifying whatsoever. Because I think network is broad.
Okay, so, but we probably don't need online, because it's just professional networking. So it's maybe, and if we're going to try and like just massage this more, unlock your professional, the right professional connections fast. Do we need networking in there? If we're motivated and that's our purpose, we're going to get there anyway. And it doesn't necessarily have to be networking. It's like, I'm going to meet this person, or I'm going to this place, and I just need to see who's. I don't even need to be told networking. Unlock the right professional connections fast, because that's what I care about. I care about the network because it provides connections. And so that's some way, those are ways that we can start, crossing out words, because we think they add clarity, but sometimes they just are more stuff, because this is just saying more clearly exactly what we want. Now, sign up for free. Here's a question. Yeah, you can sign up to LinkedIn for free, but is it a zero-time commitment the moment you hit that screen? No, fill out your profile, add this to your profile, blah, blah, blah. So, yeah, magic words, candy of clickbait, but if you were trying to be very authentic, what would you say? Nothing? Or if you wanted to, again, massage different parts of this, you could say, like, take 3 minutes to unwrite the right connection. That's a way that you could build in some authenticity into the desired action. And people get very caught up and they're like, hey, that's a nice button. But again, people really like authenticity. And when you actually test very authentic statements against ones that are more just clicky, they tend to, again, I'm overgeneralizing here, but they tend to perform very well, especially in a web basis versus mobile or versus an ad context. So we're doing stuff that aren't ads. Ad messaging will be different. But what I hope you've taken away from this there are a lot of basic tendencies, natural tendencies all of us have when we're designing messaging. We tend to put in all the words that make it precisely correct, but don't necessarily add to clarity. So the comprehensiveness that I was talking about, you saw it in action here. It's like, oh, these are old habits. We have a tendency to not connect as humans, or to talk about it from a human perspective. Who we're talking to is super important in making sure that messaging is particularly resonant. And much bigger picture, we didn't talk about this at all because we were just, for time, we didn't have the time. All of this needs to add up to the position they want to occupy. So this was actually happening in some of the side discussions of groups that were doing LinkedIn. Their biggest revenue generator is Sales Navigator. So they need that network. They're a B2C to B2C, B to B to B2C, whatever. That big complex. Like, they have to have the network to be able to have the business-to-business tool that they are monetizing, and that's like, what, $1 billion business by itself right now? So at some point they make a decision, like where and how do we message around that? And should it be different? And is it bad to own that? Or is there a way that our comprehensive brand can basically own those things? We're around, so unlock the right professional connections. That works just as much for consumer messaging as it does for professional sales and recruiting messaging. So if we looked at it through that lens, gee, this encompasses all of our business objectives, then that would be, it might not be as clicky or as emotive or as connective, but the fact that it can cross all of our business units and business objectives might make it a better choice, depending, again, always depends on what your business goals are and where you are. So always examine that too. Questions? Yes?
So back to the examples where you showed how different companies have evolved their positioning over time. How does a company or organization set themselves up to be ready to evolve or to identify when they need to evolve?
So the biggest thing I'll say is people's tendency is to evolve too soon. They are out and ahead of their market because they're trying to push their market, but markets always lag where you think you are. And so I'd say, like, with all of those examples, they held those positions and that messaging for a really long time, years. And it takes incredible discipline to do that. And so I would say that the right indicators that it's time to shift are your other business indicators. Your inbound leads are declining, which means like, okay, that message isn't resonating anymore, the position we're occupying, or you're having more competitive losses in the marketplace where clearly these guys are either outflanking us in how we're positioning ourselves in the market, or the messaging isn't resonating. So you have to look at other external indicators to tell you when the time is right. It's not sort of like 6 months it equals this, but it's very much those other indicators that tell you when the right time is. But change far less than you think. Other questions? All right, well, I think all of this material and this slide deck is going to everyone that attends True University. So you guys will have it as a reference. But I thank you very much for your time and for all the work that you guys put into this. And again, just share information, be each other's editors, because you all now attend to this and you know what you can do for one another. And thank you so much for attending.